So I'd like to welcome everyone to the Bendale Library today. My name is Seema Rambrose. I'm the branch head here. So today I'm very excited to introduce and have again, this is our second time having Reelworld Film Festival at the Bendale Library. And our panelists, it's very exciting. I'm very excited to hear what they have to say. And I'll introduce Mr. Andy Marshall, who is the industry coordinator at Reelworld Film Festival, and he is going to be our moderator today.
I'm Andy Marshall. I'm one of Reelworld's industry coordinators. And joining me today are Caitlyn Salmon and Dr. Kristopher Alexander. And we have a third panelist who I'm sure the weather has impacted. So hopefully he will come as we're doing this, because his name is Riccardo Curtis, and he's got some really interesting things to say. So today, it's Black History Month, so we're going to tell you a little bit about the Black history of animation. And I have guests with me as well, Caitlyn Salmon, Riccardo Curtis, and Dr. Kristopher Alexander. So Black History Month, so I'm going to give you a little bit of history, okay? When do you think the first black character, animated character, happened? When do you think that was? Any idea? Yeah, it's a long time ago. It was 1929. There was a character named Bosco, and he was part of the whole, the Warner Brothers Looney Tunes. You remember Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck? Then the 1950s, we see the first black animator. So that's the first person who's actually making the stuff happen. Those other characters were created by non-black people. So the first black animator was a guy named Frank Braxton, and he worked with Warner Brothers, the same people who brought you Bosco, right? And he went on to work on various shows like George of the Jungle. Do you guys know that show? Yes. Yeah? And then Charlie Brown, you know Charlie Brown and Peanuts? He did some of the Charlie Brown TV specials. And the first black animator at Disney was a guy named Floyd Norman. And he was also in the 50s, 1950s. So this is like even before your parents were born. So right now there's a lot of really great films out there featuring black characters that are drawn by black animators as well. And what we're doing here today is going to introduce you to three people who are working in the industry as animators and in video games, and they're going to talk to you about how it all gets done, and just let you know that it's happening right here in Toronto. We didn't have to like fly them up from LA or New York. Right here in Toronto, they're doing great stuff. Caitlyn's laughing because she actually worked in Black Panther. Caitlyn currently works with Nishnawbe Aski Nation, an indigenous organization using animation for cultural education. So she's going to give us a little bit of history of animation and talk about cultural animation. Okay? Let's turn it over to Caitlyn.
All right, guys, can everyone see behind me? Can you all see the projection? Yeah? Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you guys a brief history of an examination of cultural animation. So here's just a brief history of animation. So some of the earliest forms of showing motion and movement were found in Paleolithic cave drawings. So you see that up there. A few Egyptian murals and hieroglyphs thought to be around 4,000 years old also depict sequences of events including battles and wrestling. And even several of Leonardo da Vinci's drawings, which were around 1500 AD, including the Vitruvian Man, showed multiple angles which were indicating movement. So some of the earliest animations on film. In 1914, the world witnessed the first example of a character development in drawn animation. This was Winsor McCay. He created this animation called Gertie the Dinosaur, and it was the first film to combine live action footage with hand-drawn animation. And for Mr. McCay to actually execute this and give this to us, it took him drawing over 10,000 drawings, just by hand. That's all him. One guy. So in 1930s, Warner Brothers Studios was introduced, and that's the first time that you guys have ever seen Bugs Bunny. You guys know Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck? Do you guys still watch Looney Tunes today, the new ones? Do you like it or not really? A bit? Okay, all right. Okay, mixed feedback, all right. I'm gonna talk to you now about past and present depictions of cultural animation. So what we mean when I talk about cultural animation, it's the identification activation and dynamization of a particular sphere or cultural experience. So through the use of 2D animation, and that's what you see right now with Mulan and Lilo and Stitch, that's 2D. And also computer-generated imagery, that would be 3D. We're able to preserve, convey, and express various depictions of like various cultures, customs, and history. And cultural animation gives us a sense of why certain traditions and activities are so important. So have you guys seen Coco before? Yeah, okay. No, you haven't? Okay, I'm gonna show you a clip, and in this clip, Coco's grandmother is talking to him about the Day of the Dead and why it's so important.
Bring the family together. I don't want you sneaking off to who knows where. Where are you going? I thought we were done.
So in conclusion, cultural animation is an art-based medium in which we experience different ethnic groups and communities are shown. And the reason why this type of animation is so important and powerful is it allows people of various backgrounds to tell stories and reflect on past, present, and future experiences. Thank you so much for listening, guys.
Can you imagine that you could be like a doctor of video games? That's what this dude is. He's a doctor of video games. Yeah. So this is Dr. Kristopher Alexander. He actually teaches at Humber College, and he's going to talk a little bit about animation in video games and in education.
Thank you kindly. Thank you all for having me. How are y'all doing today? Good? All right. Sweet. So I'm here to talk to you today about video games and animation. Now, does anybody recognize this character here? Ryu. Yo, disrespect. That's not Ryu. Anybody? That's a good guess, though. It's a similar geese. I like that. You probably play Smash. That's why you made that guess. Is that why you did that? Which one? 5. Okay, this is from Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, and here's a random fact that you're never going to use ever again. 5 years ago, I was top 20 in the world in this game playing as this character. You got to do something to get this Ph.D. Anyway, so here's what we're going to talk about today briefly, because I know we don't have a lot of time. I'm just going to start talking to you about animation tools and techniques in video games, and then I'm going to talk about some of the subtle differences, which you all know, between traditional film and television and video games. You with me? Thank you, thank you. Hello, how are y'all doing today? Great? You have a question before we even start. What's up? What's your question? I got you. Do you make video games? I teach the students that do make the video games, and I'll explain exactly which games they worked on in mere moments. Your question. I did make video games. I helped to develop University of Toronto's video game design camp in the Faculty of Physical Education and Health. So if you guys ever went to Ryerson or UFT or Concordia to learn about video games, I built those programs. So here's a question. What do these two humans have in common? First, Alfonso Ribeiro and Calvin Cordozar Broadus Jr. What do these two have in common? Huh? What'd you say? What'd you say? That's a real answer. What'd you say? You don't know? I'll tell you. It's going to blow your minds. The answer is Fortnite. Now you're like, yo, hold up. In Fortnite, there's an emote called the Fresh Dance. Oh, snap. And if you look closely, there's a striking resemblance between those two. Now, Calvin Cordoza Broadus Jr., also known as, did you know that was his name? It blew my mind when I researched that. That's a long name. So there's an emote in Fortnite called the Tidy Dance. And if you look at the Tidy Dance, there's an incredible resemblance between those two characters. So here's my question to you, which proves that you already know what I'm about to tell you. How on earth did they get those dances into Fortnite? Somebody already knows. Let's do it. Tell me. I got you.
They copied it.
What do you mean copied it?
They copied it with animation.
What do you mean they copied it with animation?
I don't know.
What do you mean I don't know?
I don't know.
Anybody else? How? How on earth did we get something that's not real to look like something that is real? Yo, what's up? Mocap? Wait a second, that's a big word. What did you say? You just curse at me? What's mocap? Can you? Motion capture, how does that work? Now, you were onto something when you said that we capture video of somebody doing something and then translate it in. But you ever see those movies where there are people dressed up wearing these black suits and they got a whole bunch of dots on them? Yeah, why do you think we do that? Go ahead.
Because they're like little sensors that are hooked up to a computer, so you can get the dance and put it into a camera.
Whoa, do you work here? That was incredible. A round of applause for that answer. That's it right there. My time is done. That's it. I'm done. All right. Absolutely right. So take a look at this picture here on the left. Now, this is Ellen Page from a game called Beyond Two Souls. Now, you notice those bees you were talking about are all over her face. Why would they be there? Go ahead, Mr. Bad. Sorry, it's your hat. I shouldn't say that. Pedagogically, it's a bad idea. Tell me, what were you going to say?
Does it make it look more like fake?
A little fake, yeah, more realistic if you put the beads on. What were you going to say?
I think the sensors like make her face change.
Yes! So you said they think that the sensors make the face change. So on the left, you see those tiny little dots, and in the background, you see that giant circle that looks really bright? Those are lights that are flashing on those tiny balls. And inside of that giant ring is a camera that, as you mentioned, since you work here, it captures that data and brings it into the computer. Then we map that data on top of that face, and in the game, it looks like Ellen Page is talking. Let's talk about film and television versus video games, some of the subtle differences. Now, there's a dance associated with this. I'm gonna see how cool y'all are and whether or not you can get into it. So, let's talk about the differences, subtle differences. With traditional animation, we have two axes, all right? We've got X and Y, height and width, all right? So you could, oh, I can't do this. All right, so we're not gonna do the dance today, just joking. All right, here we go. So the first one goes like this. Everybody do this. It's a chop and then a slice, all right? So X, Y, or Y, X. You with me so far? So that means we're just working on two planes. Now, let's take a look at that in action here from Toy Story 2. Here you have your boy Buzz Lightyear and Rex inside of Andy's room. Now, since we're only on X and Y axis, here's my question. Can I walk behind this projector and see Buzz Lightyear's back? I can't do that? I'm trying, it's not working. That can't happen? Nothing there, right? Because we only have the two axes. Now, that's the difference between traditional animation and video game animation. Are you all familiar with Andy's room? All right, so let's take a look at that animation again in a moment. But first, let's talk about the third axis, which is the Z or Z axis, depending on which part of the world you're in. I better say Z today. And okay, so here goes. Don't tell your parents I told you this, okay? There's the chop, the slice, and the stab. All right, let's do it. Chop, slice, stab. All right, don't do it in front of your parents or your family. So when we're animating for video games, we have to make sure that we render all the way around the character because you're in charge of the camera. You can move it around at any time, all right? So that's a subtle difference between traditional animation and video game animation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Oh, I can take some questions. I've been taking them the whole way. What's up?
Also, how do you like make stuff? Like some people on YouTube, they like how do you like get rid of sometimes you in like games? So you make the game, but there may be like a glitch in it, and some people figure out when they do that.
Those are mostly mathematical.
How do you like get rid of those glitches? Would you have to like take the game out and like fix it and then put it back in?
You'd have to modify some of the code or the math behind the game because they found what's called an exploit. That means they found something that kind of breaks the game and the experience as it was intended. And then we use math to patch that up. And there, you know how you always turn on a game or open a piece of software and there's an update? Well, we're fixing tiny loopholes mathematically. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my time. Thank you so much. Take care.
We have our last guest here, Riccardo Curtis. He's the founder of an animation house called the House of Cool.
Hey guys, so I had a presentation, but because you guys are so smart, I'm going to throw it all away, and I'm going to try to answer your questions before you ask them. So, yes, I worked on The Incredibles, as well as Monsters, Inc., Book of Life, Troll Hunters, Three Below, Octonauts? Okay, so do you guys, I worked on the Charlie Brown movie as well. Ice Age. Okay. Do you guys know the different types of animation? Okay, so there's basically 3 types of animation, and I'm going to give you examples. So the first type would be 2D. So 2D is kind of like hand-drawn. Do you guys draw a lot? Okay, so this is the first type. The second type, which is very popular now, is CG, which is computer-generated animation. So all the stuff at Pixar, you guys know Pixar? Yeah? No? A lot of stuff at Disney, that's all CG. And then the third type is, you guys can guess, do you know what the third type might be? No? Or are you guys looking at that? So the third type of animation is stop motion. So when I got into the industry, well, first of all, let's step back. When I got in the industry, if I look around and see the faces now, faces like you didn't exist in the industry. First of all, there weren't any girls. So when I don't know what you guys watch now. I don't know. You guys watch Paw Patrol? No, you guys are too old for that. But most of that is done by a diverse group of people. Men, women, black people, white people. Back then, it was only white men who did everything. I went to school. When I went to school, there were almost no girls in my class going to animation. And I was definitely the only brown person. And this is Canada. I spent most of my career working in the States, meaning California, Los Angeles, LA, San Francisco, New York, at places like Pixar, Warner Brothers, Blue Sky. And when I went, there were almost no women at all. And I was definitely the only brown person there in every place in 25 years. But it's very different now, which is really great. So that diversity allows for stories like Black Panther. 25 years ago, they would never make Black Panther. That would never happen. Or Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was a female director. That would never happen. A superhero movie by a female director? Impossible. So you guys are living in a time that's really very much changed. When I went to school, I had to record on film because we didn't have VHS. We didn't even have that technology. We had to do it on film cameras. Do you guys know film cameras, how it works? You guys have any idea? You probably have no idea. You actually had to record images on acetate, meaning like when you take a picture, not digitally, you had to actually feel it and touch it on a reel-to-reel. I don't know how to even explain this to these guys. But essentially, if I wanted to shoot animation, I would have to shoot it on a camera, frame by frame, take that thing, get it developed. 2 days later, it would come back, and then I would take a look at it, and I go, left the lens cap on, got to shoot again. Then you do it again, 2 days later, it would come back, and then you would have to shoot that. And that doesn't even include sound. That was separate. You'd have to add that separately. Okay, but now everything is totally different. You guys have the power to create the content in the way that you want to create the content, in any way that you want it, in any form that you want it. I think it's important that you guys do make it, because you guys are the ones who are going to be controlling the world when we're not around. So you should take that power now and use it wisely.
So thank you for coming. Thank you, Teach, for bringing them out. I know it's a really crazy day out there, so be careful as you walk back. All right, take care, everyone. Thank you for coming out.